Good day. Welcome to the United States Volunteers Joint Services Command. This is the headquarters of the 10th Regional Command, Forward, Las Vegas, Nevada, for Commanders Conference 2016. Welcome to all.
And we need a little more time to finish up a wonderful story, and that's General Coffey. General Coffey, we're glad to have you back on the show.
Thank you very much for inviting me back again.
Yes, and we'd like you to do part two here to continue what you were saying about your military career, the USV, and all the things that you're doing now.
Well, I think when we left off, I was at my first year at the preparatory school, and then to the Naval Academy with the class of 75.
Yeah.
During the year I was at the Naval Academy, God started really working in my life, and I could see at the same time in Linda's letter writing from home, because she had gotten involved in community college because she was going to be a teacher in elementary education. And she got involved with a group of Christian college students that really had an effect on her life. Unbeknownst to either of us, we rededicated our lives to Christ.
Oh.
I gave my life as a 9-year-old boy to Jesus at a Christian camp that I attended at summer camp, and it's stuck with me.
Yes.
The United States Naval Academy had this wonderful program for midshipmen called Officer Christian Fellowship.
Oh.
And we were mentored by commissioned officers and senior midshipmen about what our foundation in life should be. And we had several lectures throughout our academy time from senior naval officers that really put it on the line. It says, if you don't have Jesus Christ as your baseline, nothing else will matter.
That's true.
And that you have to have this solid foundation in your faith before you can do anything or be a success in any kind. And that's the premise I took from there. Well, in our letter writing back and forth, we could see something had changed in our relationship and how we were, little things like, well, praise the Lord, and things like that. Our language had totally changed.
Spiritual all the time.
Yeah, and we had. And again, we only saw each other every 6 months when I had leave, or she came in the summertime. She'd come out for the graduation ceremonies, and
that must have been great.
well, it was interesting because she always got hooked up and staying at the chaplain's home, who never had daughters.
Isn't that amazing?
And this one chaplain we had at the academy, the wife just fell in love with Linda and just adopted her. He says, "You come anytime. You're going to be my adopted daughter." She had 3 sons. Wow. They had 3 sons, and none of them had been married. So Linda became the adopted daughter of the chaplain at the Naval Academy at the time.
Yeah.
And where his quarters were and where my barracks was across an athletic field. And the only time you could really see each other was Morse code flashlight. That worked kind of good.
Kind of worked.
Yeah, but
Sending messages.
flash. But it was so nice. On Sunday afternoons, we had open free time at the academy, and the chaplain would say, "Come on over. You sit on our veranda. Have some iced tea, and you can have a young lady under chaperone conditions." Well, the chaplain and his wife were definitely with it, and I think we're going to go upstairs and do some reading. You guys can have the parlor down here.
Well, how nice it is. How thoughtful.
So we had some alone time, let's say, together when she came back to visit, but everything was very much above board because
of course.
At the Naval Academy in those years, okay, let me tell you, they were absolute, very strict. You should not be married. You should not have even a serious relationship until you're 3 months out from graduation, and then you can consider maybe announcing an engagement, but not as an underclassman. In fact, even the plebes, you got out maybe once or twice a weekend a year. The juniors or the sophomores maybe 3 or 4 times. Juniors, again, regulations have all changed during that time period.
Sure.
So let's bring it up a little bit fast forward. During that time period at the academy, God would really be working on my life. And I got really much interested in the investigative line of work. And the Navy had just developed a program called Master of Arms. And that's the military police version for the naval services.
Yes.
Prior to that time, Master at Arms was just a temporary appointed position, either on shore or when the ship came into port. They would appoint an officer and a group of people to be shore patrol.
Yes.
But this became an actual job classification, but it wasn't going to be available for my class year of 75 until class 79 for the officer track in the career. So my choices was take my commission in the Navy, go to sea, reapply for Master at Arms sometime later.
Yeah.
Get a commission in the Marine Corps, immediately become a military policeman, but do Marine military police.
This is the Marines, yeah.
Well, little thing Beirut happened.
Yes.
All of those Marines that went down were military police.
Oh, I see.
And so we had quite a discussion, would I go Navy or Marine Corps and be able to do law enforcement work?
Law enforcement.
And she says, I don't want you a Marine. No way.
Yeah.
And so the third option was I leave the Navy and go to the Army. And that's kind of the direction God had
Very unusual.
worked things out.
Worked, yeah.
I was released and then came back to Seattle. What was interesting, I finished off, I was a political science history major,
Yeah.
changed my degree to law enforcement, picked up an associate degree within 1 year in law enforcement, and was immediately hired by the Washington State Patrol
My.
in the civilian capacity.
State trooper.
I was a state trooper. And that following year, we announced our engagement. And that following year, in 1973, we were married. And I became a state trooper 1 month before that.
Oh my goodness.
Not knowing I was even going to have my wedding day off, because my supervisor was rather stickler to regulations, says you have to be employed for over 6 months before you have any time off.
Oh.
We don't know if we're going to even let you able to go to your own wedding.
Oh my goodness.
However, 48 hours before the wedding date, he says, I talked to the captain. I think we can let you go here for 24 hours. But you need to be back. This was Friday night,
Yeah.
Thursday night. You need to be back by Sunday afternoon. We have our annual picnic, and you need to be there, young trooper.
For a picnic. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
So we went and had our wedding on the hottest day of year in 1973, and we guys were wearing polyester tuxedos with high, fluffy collars.
I remember those.
And the girls were all in long sleeve satin, yellow and blue dresses. Of course, she had the most beautiful wedding gown.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, in that heat, right?
And I was supposed to be assigned to a position in Seattle, Washington.
Ah.
Well, the patrol in their ultimate wisdom, like the armed forces, said, you know, we need to transfer you, we need troops down in this area. We're going to send you down to a place, well, it's either Ephrata, Washington or Vancouver, Washington. And I said, Sergeant, where's Ephrata, Washington? And he just laughed and he says, you're going to go to Vancouver. Well, Vancouver is a suburb, actually, of Portland, Oregon. So very close. And we had relatives in Portland, Oregon, so that all worked out. So right after the wedding, we shipped off and ended up being on our own, 2 young kids, newly married.
And you're a cop.
Yeah. Yeah, that too. And at the same time, the Army got a hold of me because I had my law enforcement credentials, graduated the academy, and they said, we're looking to establish a new Army Reserve Military Police Battalion. And we're looking for people that are in prior military service. I had my academy time.
Sure, absolutely.
And that are current law enforcement officers in the civilian world, and it fit the bill. And he says, however, you have to go through the state OCS program. I said, well, listen, I've already completed the academy routine.
Yeah.
Can't you just commission me?
Yeah.
And he said, we really need to green you. Greening means learn the Army way.
The Army way, yeah.
I was born and raised Navy, taught Navy.
Yeah.
This was a,
their way.
The overhead, the bulkhead, the hatch. And I had to learn that that's a ceiling, that's a window, and that type of thing. So I said, okay, I'd go through clandestinely. I wouldn't tell them, keep my mouth shut and just go through the program. So I did that for a year, took my commissioned in the Military Police Corps, and I was appointed to this brand new unit, the 324th Military Police Battalion. And I was a second lieutenant through there and had been in law enforcement, active law enforcement, civilian, and active duty. I had several AGR tours, that's active guard reserve. I was activated for Gulf War I, okay, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Desert Sortie. And because I was the senior law enforcement officer for the entire West Coast of the United States, and our unit came out of Seattle, when they activated the reserves and to the active component, they didn't have all the bells and whistles together. You had to be off of your orders in the reserves before they could access you to the active component, and it took sometimes 3 months. She got phone calls from my enlisted people saying, how do we survive? We haven't had a paycheck in 3 months. We need food, we need diapers. They were calling her because I was the commander of the troops and the people back home. We didn't have the support then. Linda, in her ultimate wisdom, went to the churches and saying, we don't have a support system built in for the reserves going on active duty. Because this, again, was the first time the reserve forces were called to active duty since World War II.
Yeah, it was unusual.
Because during Vietnam, they only took the draftees.
Yeah.
And this time they were calling the reserve and guard. Wow. And all of my troops down here in Southern California were California Highway Patrolmen, San Diego Sheriff, LAPD officers that were part of the Washington or the California Guard.
Yeah, special.
But I was the company commander of the units that went up and down. We took civilian ports, militarized them, received the equipment, loaded them on the ships, sent the ships off, went to another port, and we did this from the time of the invasion in August. We were activated in September. We were supposed to come home at Christmas time, couldn't come home, and we were in Southern California during the time. All the time, she was still getting the phone calls because my people weren't getting paid.
They were so desperate.
And they were so desperate. And they would say, what do we do? How do we survive? Where do we go to? And Linda had the ultimate wisdom of contacting the churches.
Good idea.
And God provided.
And the church was the church.
Yeah. Oh, they came through.
Yeah,
Came through.
absolutely.
Oh, God's people came through.
So that was our first adventure out there. Well, I was back home. This was in 19. Give me the years, honey.
90?
90, right?
90,
yeah. 10 years prior to that, we had gone on a couple of tours. I was stationed at Fort Benning, Georgia, Fort McClellan, Alabama. But we had our children there. We had 4 little ones by that time.
Yeah.
And we did some just wonderful family things. But the active duty being called up like that. Then from California, some of our troops had to go overseas to Jamal, offload the ships that we had loaded up in the Pacific, because it took about 90 days of transit to move the supplies through. And then again, Desert Storm 1 was a very quick war. It ended in February 28th, and we immediately had to load the ships back up again. And there was a commitment in Saudi Arabia at that time that the State Department ruled that we would be out of country on a certain date at a certain time. Yeah. Well, we were still loading ships up until hours before that date. And it got to the point that we weren't done loading, and they said we had to be out of country. And it was a technical out of country. They physically came in and cut the mooring lines and allowed the ships to drift out, probably 50 yards to 100 yards out into the water. Okay, we're out of country. And it was save face, nothing more than that had occurred. But where did our rest of our equipment? They were still sitting there dockside.
Sitting at dockside.
And it's, to this day, it's still over there in country.
Still there.
And
amazing. Wow.
90 days later, we were back in Southern California, offloading the same stuff.
Imagine that. Wow.
Again, it wasn't until quite some time later in 91 that we got done with that program. But fortunately, how things worked out, I was immediately appointed to the U.S. Army's Command and General Staff College.
Really?
I was a young captain. Usually you have to be a major to do that.
Yes.
I got an appointment directly to attend Fort Leavenworth.
I had a friend who graduated.
And that was beginning of my rocket career, I think.
Absolutely.
I did very, very well at the Command and General Staff College. I had that under my belt. In fact,
that's very prestigious.
2 years later, I was asked to become an instructor, and I instructed for the academy in military leadership, ethics, tactics, and history. History was my favorite.
I love it.
I taught in what they call the non-resident program at Fort Lewis and Camp Murray, Washington for the next 6 years. And that was my reserve assignment. Thoroughly loved it.
I'm sure you
Went
did.
back and met some of the most outstanding officers. In fact, many of the students that I had back then were young majors and lieutenant colonels are now wearing multiple stars
Imagine that.
on active
And
components
you
today.
helped to train them in the leadership.
God allowed me to
What
be a part of
what a
that.
privilege.
And it was interesting, most of every class I had at least 2 chaplains, 2 JAG officers, and at least 4 or 5 docs
Yeah.
that could not take the time to go to the active component school, but could come to the
Come to that one.
non-resident
Oh,
program.
what a great program.
And so, through the years, God has allowed me to meet some wonderful people and influence them. Well, the next adventure we had after that was in 1995. President Clinton was in command, and we had the Haiti relief action.
Oh, yes.
I was the commanding officer of the 448 Civil Affairs Battalion headquarters. I had moved out of the military police after my last assignment in the Command and General Staff College, and instead of taking military police unit, I was the military police liaison, but commanding officer of the headquarters element.
Actual headquarters.
Headquarters. Well, because the Haiti relief action took place, President Clinton immediately mobilized the 82nd Airborne and went into Haiti relief the presidency of his office. Physically, we went in and did an invasion,
I see.
and there was some firefighting going.
They put up a little struggle.
Yeah, there was a minor struggle. Well, the 82nd is only prepared to stay a very short time. They were just quick stop, energy. So for whatever reason in the Pentagon, I don't know whoever made this call, but they said, well, the 82nd needs to be replaced. Who are we going to send in next? Well, let's send in the 10th Mountain. Okay, the 10th Mountain is a winter upper North America unit.
Right.
It does not do tropic.
Don't they wear white too sometimes in the
Yes.
snow?
So here's the United States Pentagon. I'm not going to insult anybody, but someone made a bad decision on this one. Sent the 10th Mountain in to relieve the 82nd Airborne.
Yeah.
Well, the 10th Mountain got there. They had no equipment that would be able to support a tropic environment. And then this went on for about 90 days, and they said, this isn't smart. They said, well, where's our tropic? Our tropic unit is headquartered in Hawaii.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, let's send that element in. Well, because this was a civil military operation, not combat, they said, oh, we need our civil affairs unit. Well, my unit happens to be the civil affairs unit attached to the headquarters of the 25th Infantry Division based in Honolulu, Hawaii.
Oh, wouldn't you know? That-
So guess who went? We
yeah.
were immediately activated again, and here we went, and off to Haiti we went.
Wow.
But we had to go through the combat training at we were special operations. I don't jump out of airplanes, okay?
No.
But we were special operations.
Right.
Civil affairs is part of psychological operations, but we do the civil military. We are we deal with the civilians.
Yeah.
We are purple.
I
And
see.
we're that
Yeah,
very,
sort of diplomatic.
yeah, we're the diplomatic corps.
Yes.
We go to war with our ice boxes and roller suitcases
Yeah.
and cut-off shorts and T-shirts. That's how we go to war. And we're supposed to fit in with the snake eaters, the special operation guys.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, and it's not a very good mix, but that's something we put us together. So we went in as the G5 of the 25th Infantry Division Civil Affairs, and we were down there for like 6 or 7 miserable months.
Oh,
We tried to go in there, tried to do the right things, but because of how the government civilian system works in Haiti, you have the very rich, maybe the 1% up here, and you got the 99% down here. There is absolutely nothing in between. And we tried to do the best with civil military operations. We actually went in under a blue flag, which means United Nations.
United Nations.
And my troops hated wearing this, but we had to wear the blue beret. we weren't wearing U.S. insignias. We were wearing United Nations insignias. I won't get political. I am in the position I am now, but I have definite feelings about U.S. forces being forced into situations like that. Well, we were able to come back in July of, good grief, what was it, 96, 97, and be able to return home. And then stayed in reserve for a few years, and then, of course, in 2001, came up my retirement. I had 32 years of service in active reserve, and had got my promotion to lieutenant colonel, and got my retirement. He says, "You got your time in, you got your pay grade," and I was happy as a clam.
Sure. Thinking this was it. Right?
This is it.
Yeah.
2001. I'm out of in retirement, and sat around the first couple of months and said, "What am I going to do with the time?" And then Lindsay said, "Why don't you go do something with some of your friends or something like that?"
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't involved in too much in the political side of the service, the ROA, the MOAA, the American Legion. Wasn't really a joiner of all that. I was a member, but not really active participating.
Yes.
And had a friend of mine that said, well, gee, he's having a lot of fun with the Seattle Mariners. And they're always looking for people in background like yours, law enforcement. So I went down to Seattle Mariners and was immediately hired to do alcohol enforcement and undercover work in the executive suites of the Seattle Mariners.
Oh my God.
And for 10 years, I got to do that, go to all the ball games.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
I met some very wonderful, high people of very high influence. And I was dressed as a concierge, but I was actually the undercover alcohol guy in case there was an issue or security up there in the executive suites.
Right.
But because the Mariners baseball playing wasn't too good for the next 9 years, attendance dropped terribly. And eventually my position had to go away. So after about 10 years of doing that, and I had retired from my civilian job doing major accident investigation after my state patrol time, retired completely from my civilian job. And had just been kind of enjoying that. Been on the board of directors, like I said, for the Arlington of the West, of the military funeral home there, and just doing some minor things when met then Colonel Ben Tron. Yes. He was the commanding officer of the 101st BCT. Didn't even know what a BCT was. I thought that was a sandwich.
That's right.
and thought he was a very nice man and stuff like that.
Right.
A few months later, I got this certified letter saying that your name has been nominated and go before a board for consideration for a general or an appointment. You didn't say general at the time. To this position of being a regional commander. And I said, "What's a regional commander?" Wow. And I was almost looking and said, "Okay, what organization are you a part of, and how much money do you want?" You know. So
those are normal questions.
I literally sent this letter. I had never heard of the U.S. Volunteers Joint Service Command. Didn't know what that was from Uncle Annie's forum, and didn't think anything of it until 3 months later. I got a phone call. This is Lieutenant General Alan Ballman. I'd like to speak to Colonel Ray Coffey of the Washington State Guard, because after my time with the reserves, I retired in June of 2001. Well, September happened 2011, and everything changed again, just like Pearl Harbor. And it was 2 weeks after that, I was immediately called into the Washington State Guard and given the position of being a Assistant Chief of Staff and Provost Marshal of the Washington State Guard. And I did that for 9 years, in conjunction with my time with the Seattle Mariners. So that kind of brought that together. So in 1900, I left the Mariners and the State Guard about the same time, and retired from all that. So General Ballman says, "Well, we looked at your resume and profile." I said, "When did I send that in?" Well, a little thing called LinkedIn and a few other things like that. They had my resume. They pulled my file out of
they flagged your file.
Yeah. Anyway, so he said, "I want to offer you this is what the job is."
Wow.
And I said, "Who? What? What's your organization?" And honestly, sir, I've never heard of your organization. And so he explained, and he says, well, sir, can I think about it? I want to think about it, talk to my wife, and pray about it too. And after the phone call, I said, what the heck? I went online, jumped online. What's this organization? Saw a whole bunch of negative stuff had come up. You know, saying false honor. You know, faking. Accusations. But I read some other stuff that said no, they're part of the DOD. And so I asked around a few people, and the chairman of the advisory board that I was part of, and she said, well, let me look this up and see what, give her advice.
Sure.
And she came back and he says, I would run away from this thing. This is a phony organization. You don't want to have anything to do with this group. This guy's a total fake. You know, and their people wear fake awards, and a person themselves as war heroes. And I said, where are you getting that? Well, I read it all on the internet. I'm thinking, lady, I mean, nice. I really liked her, but and so we had some discussion. I said, well, I'm really considering. I think I can help out this unit to get it going, because what it's doing is really good.
Yeah.
Providing military honors. And she says, you will not be able to stay on this board if you join this organization.
Really?
And so I got the option, and I said, listen, I'm not going to do anything I respect the things of this board.
Yes.
I really honor it, and if that's the way you feel, I will voluntarily resign my position as your deputy on this board and take this position. And I called the general back and said, I really believe that I think I can help Colonel Tron up here, because there were some language problems at the time dealing with his unit.
You felt something good about that.
Right, but I felt it was the right thing to do, even though that I was getting some real bad negative feedback. And so she called me into the office, and I went with the funeral director of the funeral home that was in charge of Arlington West, and formally submitted my resignation, without any prejudice.
Were they surprised?
I think they were surprised that I would walk away from them, because they were looking at me to take over her position as she was a brigadier, Air Force brigadier, and again, I was an 06, Army Reserve retiree, but National Guard 06, or State Guard 06, and so I made that decision, and got associated with it, and I told the commander, and he says, well, one other thing I didn't tell you, your position actually comes with a star. It's a brigadier command. I said, sir, I do not want a star. I am very content of being a colonel. I don't need a star. I'm paid well enough as it is with my retirements and things. And kind of the rest of that has been history. And from that time forward, the growth of the 10th Regional Command.
Amazing.
And once I was, 3 years ago, General Bauman did promote me, and in November of 2013, we had a formal ceremony at the city. I had to be at a public venue and had to be with a federal judge. Formally swore me in and took my oath of office as a Brigadier General, U.S. Volunteers, Joint Service Command, Commanding General, 10th Regional, and essentially we're FEMA organized, but 10th Regional Command of the U.S. Volunteers. And as of last night, I was a very content Brigadier General, but as of, I think it was around 9 o'clock last night. Around 9 o'clock last night, 22nd.
God works in mysterious ways.
22nd of August, 2016, I gave up my Brigadier Generalship, and with the grace of God,
praise God.
picked up my second star.
And congratulations, and well deserved, sir. No, the Lord had that for you all the time.
I absolutely.
He's the one that lifts up.
I absolutely don't deserve the credit, because that second star belongs to the members of the 101st BCT, who have absolutely outperformed, out-recruited, out-trained any other command of this national organization. We are not quite border to border or sea to sea yet in filling all of the 10 regions, but we're going to be there real soon. And I really feel through the guidance of the chaplaincy program that we have, the medical program that we have supporting this, that the U.S. Volunteers is on the exact right track. I want everyone to understand that every single day now, over 1,600 veterans are passing and going on. But each one of those veterans throughout the United States is entitled to full military honors, because whether they serve 2 years or 20 years, they were due those honors. And it's the U.S. Volunteers now that have stepped up and said, we will serve those who have gone before us by providing the honors that the active component, reserve component, and National Guard so muchly would want to perform, but because of manpower, sequester, and the complete downsizing of our federal and state forces, no longer have the capabilities to do that. And they have to turn to organizations as the U.S. Volunteers to fill that requirement need. And that's the reason we exist, and that's why we're here today. And God is directing us, I believe, 100%.
I believe
and if God's in it, then there's no way I can say no. So I'm in my 45th year of uniform service to the country of the United States.
Wonderful. We want to heartily congratulate you,
Thank you very
sir.
much.
And it's a delight to have you on our program again, the second
Yes,
time.
thank you very much.
And appreciate your years of service to God and country. And actually, you stand as a role model to many, many people, and we're very glad to have you aboard.
Well, I really encourage that if this story has touched anyone alive here today, that if you still have an inkling of putting that uniform back on, the U.S. Volunteers sincerely needs you. Whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, or even your 60s, that you can wear your uniform and perform some of the duties. We need personnel people, we need logistic personnel, we need transporters, we need people who are know ceremonial duties. We're all certified to do the funerals under the Department of Defense.
That's correct.
It's called the AP3 program. That's the Authorized Provider Partnership.
That's right.
Where we get our authority. We're under U.S. Code, Chapter 10,
Right.
Title 36, and it's all there that we're a bona fide military organization.
That's right, correct. We want to thank General Ray Coffey again for being on our show with the Promise Broadcasting Network again today. And we appreciate all of you that are viewing in. And I'm so happy and that he mentioned about those of you who may be viewing today that would like to perhaps put that uniform back on and become a part of the United States Volunteers Joint Service Command. I myself not only am president of the university, but also am a member of the United States Volunteer and former chief of chaplains. And I can say to the guys out there, and the ladies too, if you want to put that uniform back on, we would certainly love to talk to you and be interested in seeing you again. Thank you very much for viewing us today, and God bless you real good.